All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Well, the NFL schedule has finally been released. And of course, with that said, it's one of those, granted, we're still in May. We've got about 3.5 months to go for the regular season, to the start of the regular season, that is. But with that said, I mean, you want to look ahead to the schedule, but then you don't want to look ahead because due to the fact that, yeah, this is the schedule right now, but things can change. And I'm not saying as far as who's going to play who, but in regards to marquee games, whether it be injuries, whether a team disappoints, whether a team overachieves, you name it, there's plenty on the table. But with that said, there's still some games heading into the 2023 NFL season that you definitely want to highlight. You look at week number one, and you're going to have the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs opening at home on Thursday night against the Detroit Lions. And of course, for about 20 years now, it's been customary for the defending champs to get that primetime game. Of course, on a Thursday night. And for me, obviously, you're not surprised to see the Chiefs there. I'm just surprised to see the Lions in that slot. No disrespect to Detroit, but I'm just thinking typically, this spot is reserved for the defending champs to take on either a divisional rival or a potential, playoff rival. And I think this was a prime slot for the folks at NBC, to get that matchup where you get Bengals Chiefs, a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game right off the bat, or pardon me, Chiefs Bills, because we've seen what that rivalry has meant in recent years on the AFC side, or even being that the Chiefs, do take on the Philadelphia Eagles this season. How about have the Eagles and Chiefs in week number one, starting the season where we left off from last year? It's that same week number one on Sunday night. You're going to have the Dallas Cowboys traveling to the Meadowlands to take on the New York Football Giants, and of course, following the Giants' resurgence last year, there's hope, that the Giants can keep it up. But at the end of the day, two of the bigger marquee markets in the country. And of course, for the most part, it seems like the Giants, with the exception of last year and a couple of years here or there, it seems like every single year the Giants are either opening up against Dallas or Washington. But this could be an opportunity for them to start their season on the right foot again. But it won't be easy against the Cowboys. On Monday night, MetLife Stadium is once again going to be featured in week number one as the Buffalo Bills travel to take on the New York Jets in the Aaron Rodgers era, with the Jets begins. And of course, with Aaron Rodgers in tow, the Jets have plenty of primetime games this year. You look ahead to week number two, you got Seattle against Detroit. And this is a game that you don't want to overlook because both of these teams finished tied with the same record last year in the NFC. And you go back to early in the season where the Seahawks won a shootout with the Lions at Ford Field. Both of these teams do have an eye on getting back to the postseason this season. So this could be an important game early on. That same week in week number two, you got Indianapolis with Houston. And this could potentially be the first of many battles in this division with Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud at quarterback. Both of these rookies were taken early in this draft. Stroud, second overall to Houston, Richardson, fourth overall to Indy. It's going to be interesting to see if both of these respective clubs are willing to turn over the keys to their franchise to these youngsters so early on in the season. That same week, you got the Jets traveling to take on Dallas. And then, like I said, with Aaron Rodgers front and center at quarterback for the Jets, they're going to get their fair share of marquee games this year. That same week, you got Cleveland traveling to Pittsburgh on Monday night. Two teams that missed the playoffs last year, but they definitely want to get off to a good start. And I think the AFC North, just looking at it from right now, I'm going to do a lot, dive into this much more, in the summer months. But nonetheless, the AFC North is going to be very competitive this year, in my opinion, due to the quarterback position. I think Kenny Pickett will show some signs of improvement this year for the Steelers. Lamar Jackson now has his money with the Baltimore Ravens. You got Joe Burrow, of course, with Cincinnati. And now Deshaun Watson now gets a year in a full training camp with the Cleveland Browns. So this is going to be a very important game for both the Browns and Steelers early on. You look at week number 4, Miami traveling to take on Buffalo. These teams met 3 times last year. And of course, Buffalo sent Miami home. And you know that there is no love lost between these teams. That same week, Baltimore travels to take on Cleveland. Lamar Jackson against Deshaun Watson. That Sunday night, Kansas City will travel to the Meadowlands to take on the Chiefs, as this could be a potential playoff preview. A Hall of Fame quarterback in Aaron Rodgers and a guy in Patrick Mahomes who is definitely on the fast track to get to Canton. You look at week number 5, you got the Jets traveling to the Mile High City to take on the Denver Broncos. And you think about it last year, the Broncos were trying to get Aaron Rodgers from Green Bay before that went awry and they had to settle for Russell Wilson. So basically, you got the team that almost got Aaron Rodgers versus the team that did get him. That same week, you got Dallas traveling to take on San Francisco on Sunday night, 2 old rivals. The Niners Cowboys rivalry runs deep. Of course, they met in the postseason in each of the last 2 years, with San Francisco sending Dallas home. In week number 6, you've got Denver taking on Kansas City at Arrowhead on Thursday night. And remember, last year, these were supposed to be battles between Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes to try to win the AFC West. Now, Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City clearly kept up their end of the bargain. The same cannot be said or could not be said for Denver. Will things change for the Broncos under Sean Payton? We have to wait and see. That same week, you got the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to take on the New York Jets, as both of these teams definitely will head into the season with Super Bowl aspirations. That same week, you've got the Giants traveling to Western New York to take on the Buffalo Bills on Sunday night. And then in week number 8, you've got the Jets and Giants in the Battle of MetLife. And typically, this contest between the Jets and Giants is a little bit later in the season, but it's right smack dab in the middle. And I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of anxious fans for both teams at that contest. That same week, you got the Houston Texans traveling to take on the Carolina Panthers, as this could be the first battle in the NFL between CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Of course, these 2 quarterbacks were taken first and second overall in the last month's NFL draft, and these 2 young men are going to be attached at the hip for the entirety of their respective NFL careers. You got the Kansas City Denver rematch in week number 8. Very interesting that you get the Chiefs Broncos, both of the matchups out of the way early. But then you look at week number 9, Miami traveling to London to take on Kansas City. And I really think, if the NFL wanted Kansas City to go to London, fine. But to me, I think they did a disservice to their fan base right here, because this should have been Tyreek Hill's homecoming. And you think about what Tyreek Hill meant to that Chiefs offense during his time there. And of course, now he's a Dolphin. That same week, you've got Indy traveling to take on Carolina. You got 2 former SEC quarterbacks potentially going at it, and Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young. That same week, Dallas traveling to take on Philly in a contest that could go a long way in determining who wins the NFC East this year. Buffalo versus Cincinnati. And of course, all eyes will be on that game for a variety of reasons. The Bills were eliminated in the playoffs last year at the hands of the Cincinnati Bengals, 2 Super Bowl contenders. And of course, the tragic incident that happened late last season on Monday night between the Bengals and the Bills, when Bills defensive back Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field. Damar Hamlin is recovering. He's expected to be, give it a go this season. And definitely you wish him and all of those around him nothing but the best. That was a very scary scene, and I guarantee you it will be talked about leading up to that contest. In week number 10, you got the Giants traveling to Dallas. And this is going to be an important game, because the Giants, they got to find a way to beat Dallas and Philadelphia if they're going to take that next step in the NFC East. But it is not going to be easy. Denver at Buffalo that week on Monday night. And then you look at week number 11 on Thursday night, Cincinnati and Baltimore, 2 teams that met 3 times last year. And of course, the Bengals got the best of the Ravens in the postseason in the wild card round with Art Lamar Jackson. And this is a contest that could go a very long way in determining who wins the AFC North. The Jets traveling to Buffalo that same week, and that could go a long way in determining the winner of the AFC East. On Monday night, that week. You got Philly traveling to Kansas City, and of course, is a Super Bowl rematch. And like I said, I think the NFL would have been better served putting this contest in week number one. Looking ahead to week number 12 on Thanksgiving night, you got San Francisco traveling to Seattle. And remember, Seattle lost to San Francisco 3 times last year. And of course, if you look at that wild card game, Seattle was right there until the fourth quarter. And if you're the Seahawks and you want to take that next step and you want to get ahead of the bully in this division, you got to try to find a way to beat San Francisco. Of course, the NFL is going to roll out their first Black Friday game this year, and it's going to be the Miami Dolphins traveling to take on the New York Jets. Could be a pivotal game. In the playoff races, both of these teams have postseason aspirations. That same week, Buffalo going out there and traveling to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, two teams that have Super Bowl aspirations. Let's see how it goes. TFX, you, like a lot of people, are definitely want the NFL season to start sooner rather than later. But nonetheless, we still got a lot on the docket. I mean, we still got the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals in the NBA, as well as the NBA Finals. And right after the finals, you got the draft, and of course, MLB's All Star Game. They're fun over the summer, and before you know it, training camp will be here. And with that said, also the beginning of the regular season. With that said, in week number 13, Seattle and Dallas on Thursday night. That could be an interesting contest right there. San Francisco going back to Philadelphia for an NFC Championship game rematch. Cincinnati and Jacksonville on Monday night. You got two of the better young guns at quarterback in the AFC and in the NFL as a whole. Trevor Lawrence, of course, for Jacksonville, and Joe Burrow for Cincinnati. Now, in week number 14, Jacksonville traveling to take on Cleveland. Cleveland should be improved this year, and Jacksonville, in my opinion, is going to be or should be the favorite to win the AFC South. You got the rematch between Seattle and San Francisco that week, as well as Buffalo going to Kansas City. And in recent years, Buffalo has been able to take care of their business in the regular season versus Kansas City, but it always comes down to the playoffs as the Bills have been unable to get over that hump against the Chiefs. That Sunday night, and this should be a doozy. The Eagles traveling to take on the Dallas Cowboys. And again, Eagles Cowboys late in the season. What need I say more? Week number 15, you got the Jets traveling to Miami, Dallas going to Buffalo, which could be a tough game right there. And then a potentially tough game for for the Philadelphia Eagles, as they're traveling to the Pacific Northwest to take on a very tough Seattle team. You got Baltimore and Jacksonville on Sunday night that week. And then you look ahead to week number 16 on Saturday, a classic Hatfields versus McCoy's battle, as you got the Cincinnati Bengals clashing with the Pittsburgh Steelers in Western PA. And of course, if you follow the Bengals and Steelers over the years, there is no love lost between these two franchises. That same night, you got the Buffalo Bills traveling to take on the Los Angeles Chargers, two playoff teams from last year. And of course, both of them are hopeful to get back. And then that same week, you got the Detroit Lions traveling to take on the Minnesota Vikings in a game that could potentially go a long way in determining who wins the NFC North. Dallas will travel to play Miami that week. That won't be an easy game for either team. And then on Monday night, Christmas Day, you got the Giants going down to Philly to take on the Eagles. And again, these are the kind of games that the Giants have to find a way to win if they're going to, in order to take that next step in the NFC East. But easier said than done, as the Eagles have just retooled and reloaded as they're looking to make another push to getting to the Super Bowl. Then in week number 17, the Jets traveling to Cleveland on Thursday night, Detroit traveling to Dallas on Saturday. You got Miami against Baltimore late in the season. That's going to be a tough one right there. Cincinnati and Kansas City, a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. Be interesting to see if home field advantage could be on the line and throughout the AFC side in this one. We got to wait and see. Green Bay and Minnesota on Sunday night. And this is another one of those games that could determine who wins the NFC North. I mean, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is gone, but you know what? Green Bay has faith in Jordan Love. So we got to wait and see how this plays out. And then, of course, week number 18, there's the regular season finale, which is neighbor week, because everybody's going to be playing their a foe from their respective division. But some of those contests to keep an eye on: Cleveland versus Cincinnati, as both of those teams could be potential playoff teams. Minnesota and Detroit, both of these teams playing two times late in the season. Buffalo traveling to Miami. Ooh, that should be a doozy. The Jets traveling to take on New England. And I'll say this about this game: New England, a lot of people are writing them off as far as having a chance to get to the playoffs or even win the division in the AFC East. But even for the sake of argument, if the Patriots were out of it at that point, you don't write off Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick will find a way to cook up something. And what better New Year's present for him than to spoil a potential trip to the playoffs for the Jets? The Eagles traveling to take on the Giants. Let's see what condition and shape both of those teams are in at that point. Dallas traveling to take on Washington. And Dallas late in the season has tended to struggle going on the road to take on the Commanders. Just look at last year. Pittsburgh traveling to take on Baltimore. And of course, this could be the new black and blue division for the NFL. And of course, when you think about Ravens Steelers, the first team to 20 more than likely wins. And this could be another physical contest. But you look at teams that definitely will have some tough schedules this year. I look at the Giants. They start off at home with Dallas, and then back to back weeks on the West Coast, if you will. They travel that's following Sunday in week number two to the desert to take on the Cardinals. And then on a short week, they will take on the San Francisco 49ers on the road. So I would imagine if you're the Giants, you'd pack for a long trip, meaning that, you know what? We're going to go out there, play Arizona, and just fly out to Northern California and get ready for that game. You then come back and host Seattle, which is followed by two consecutive trips, road games against the AFC East, first against Miami and then against Buffalo. We haven't even talked about the second half of the Giants slate. They take on the Jets in week 8. Then, not to mention, the rematch with Dallas. You got two games against Philadelphia. So, this is going to be a daunting slate of games for a team like the Giants. Then, speaking of the Giants in the NFC East, I look at Philadelphia. I mean, they ran roughshod over everybody last year. It's not going to be as easy this year. I mean, the Eagles do begin on the road against New England, against the Patriots, but you look at it; those games late against Dallas, two games in the final 3 weeks against the Giants. You're traveling to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. You take on Buffalo. So I think Philadelphia definitely still has what it takes to be a playoff team this year, but I don't think they're going to run roughshod over everybody like they did last year. Sticking with the NFC East, you look at Dallas right off the bat. They travel to take on the Giants. They then host the New York Jets. They got to travel to take on San Francisco in week number 5, which is then followed by a road game against the Chargers. In week 9, they travel to take on Philly, and then they come back home to host the Giants in week number 10. They host Seattle in week number 13. They host Philadelphia in week 14. And then, of course, week 16, they're at Miami, and then they're at Washington for week number 18. And then, of course, speaking of those Miami Dolphins, it's not that much easier for the Fins as well. Right out the chute, they're on the road against the Chargers to begin the year. They then travel to Foxborough to take on the Patriots before they have their season opener against Denver. And then they're on the road to take on Buffalo. So 3 road games in the first 4 weeks. Then you come back in week 5 at home for the Giants. Week 7, you're on the road against Philly. Week 9, you got to go to London to play Kansas City. Week number 12, you're at the Jets. Then you're at Washington. In week number 13, you host the Jets. In week 15, you host Dallas. In week 16, you're at Baltimore in week number 17, and then you finish up at home against Buffalo in week number 18. So it's not going to be an easy slate for the Fins. And then sticking with the AFC East, you look at the New York Jets. And like I said, the expectations for this team obviously have changed now that Aaron Rodgers is on board. You begin by hosting Buffalo. You're then traveling to Dallas. You host New England in week number 3, never an easy game. And then you host Kansas City in week 4 before you travel to take on Denver in week 5. And then you host Philly in week number 6. You get your bye for week 7, but then you're taking on the Giants. Then you look at that stretch coming down week 11 at Buffalo, week 12 home for Miami, week 15 at Miami, week 17 at Cleveland, and then, of course, week 18 at New England. So these could be some very tough contests. Some teams on the easier side of the slate. I look at Atlanta, Green Bay, and New Orleans, and I think the NFC South is not going to be as good this year. And you figure for a team like the Saints that didn't make the playoffs last year, they just missed out on making the playoffs. Nonetheless, you got a new veteran quarterback in Derek Carr. Maybe an easier schedule could be just what you need to get over the hump. Green Bay with an easier schedule, could that cushion the blow of them going from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love this year? And then Atlanta, again, the NFC South could be up for grabs this year. We saw the Bucks win it with 8 games last year. Might be the same thing this year. So we got to wait and see. But nonetheless, here in mid-May, we've got an idea as far as who's going to play who for the NFL season. Again, a lot can change between now and then. You always know there's one or two season-ending injuries during training camp that really change the landscape for teams. And you always know early on at the beginning of the year, those first couple of weeks of the season, there's a season-ending injury as well that changes the landscape for several teams. But nonetheless, the schedule's out there. Fans have an opportunity to book their trips to respective road games. Media outlets have an opportunity to talk about it as well. And like I said, the TFX before the season will be here before you know it. Memorial Day is right around the corner, and then it's going to be the 4th of July. The next thing you know, teams are reporting to training camp. They're slapping like they're clashing with helmets, and then before you know it, the season is kicked off. So nonetheless, the schedule is out there, and before you blink, it will be the start of the 2023 NFL season. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. Like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off. Now saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.